here in that backyard.
Love it. I think my eyelash is about to blow off. Hey, Lawrence, look. I think my eyelash is about to blow off.
Well, who that? Hey!
Look. Lord, if my eyelashes blow off, that is crazy. Look, I needed some sunshades on. He got his sunshades on. I don't have mine. Look.
All right, here we are, Rollins College.
Oh.
It was started in 1885 by a group of Congregationalists from New England. And they came down here, and they were led by a lady. Her name was Lucy Cross. And their idea was to bring their church to
Florida, Orlando.
You'll sign First Congregational Church. And, of course, they wanted to have their hands in on building one of the first 3 colleges in the state. So they did that, too. They met Mr. Rollins. He wanted to put his name on the building, and he gave them $50,000 to do so. Excuse me, can we just be quiet while I'm talking? Thank you. Anyway, in 1885, Mr. Rollins came along. He wanted to put his name on the building, and he gave them $50,000 to the cause, which brought them to a total of $114,000. And that was enough in 1885 to not only land the rights to build this school, but to acquire the real estate, 80 acres that it sits on today. That money, that 114K would be about $4.2 billion in today's dollars. And that was enough to acquire this college today. It's a liberal arts college, student population about 2,300. It's a Division II college. Real board and tuition to go to Rollins is about $80,000 a year. It's a really good school. I mean, they've got just about anything you can imagine in the liberal arts school. Their music program's the best of the best. They've got a Bach choir, a Bach festival, and of course a Bach orchestra to go along with that. The music program's so good that Paul McCartney sent his kid here 10 years ago, his stepson. Paul even appeared at the chapel one day with Billy Collins, who was the U.S. Poet Laureate. You know what? Billy wanted to talk about the Beatles. Paul was like, I don't think so. I'm going to pick up my guitar and play a song for you, which he did, Blackbird. And that's the story of that. But Rollins has everything. They have water skiing. You can learn to ski. You can learn to sail. Or you can live in a lakeside dormitory. This is Lakeview 1, Lakeview 2, Lakeview 3. That's what you get for $80,000 a year.
Wow.
Wow. Hey, Saint. Hey, Lawrence. Hey, y'all. Hey, Ellen. How you doing? Look, me and Louis and I, we could not walk the
And
park.
right behind, if
So
you guys
we
are looking for
took
something else to do today, right behind this boathouse is the Rollins Museum of Fine Art. It's free of charge. They've got like 10,000 pieces of artwork that they rotate in and out of here. And it's open every day but Monday. I definitely recommend it. As a matter of fact, they're bursting at the seams. They're ready to build a new museum downtown Winter Park here. It's going to be open by the end of the year, I think. Yeah. Well, they do have a They're building 2 new dormitories. They're trying to expand their student population. That's Lakeview 4 and Lakeview 5 under construction. They're also putting in a new indoor tennis center. Notice this beach area right behind it is where the old Winter Park sawmill used to stand. So they pushed the big old trees through the canals across the lakes to this destination where they'd load them up right over there onto trailers and send them over to the train station. That little dock there is called Dinky Dock, by the way, because the Dinky Railroad used to stand there, the Dinky Depot. And that little railroad carried people. It was the first line of transportation between Winter Park and Orlando, 8 miles back in 1900. Unfortunately, it fell off the tracks all the time, so they had to count on the passengers to help it back on. That building behind the boathouse here, that's Sutton Hall, the oldest dormitory on Rollins campus, also known as the freshman dorm. And those blue chairs represent where the freshmen studied. Exactly. And right next door, though, I mean, if you become the chancellor of Rollins College, you get to live in a big, fancy Spanish-style home. How about that? Her name is Brooke Barnett. She just arrived here from Butler University up in Indianapolis. July 1st was her first day on the job here. The rest of this is all private real estate. Spanish moss on those trees, you see that? That's because it resembles the
Thank you,
old,
Lawrence.
well, it's not really Spanish, but they say resembled the old Spanish beards from the pirates of the old days.
Thanks.
But you know what the Spanish guys say? It's French. Anyway. The Ford Motor Company in 1915 thought they had a brilliant idea when they started stuffing the car seats with Spanish moss, having no idea that the jitterbugs hibernated in it. And if you Google it, you'll see that that caused the very first recall in American automobile history. Wow. Those doggone jitterbugs. And then I heard that one of the early mattress manufacturers made the same mistake, and that's where that term, don't let the bed bugs bite.
Hey, Angela.
But I'm sure that, you know, I've seen a lot of Western movies where that was so. Anyway. We know. We move side to side, we back out. Generally they do, but in the next canal you go through, we can see all the way to the end. See that? Further out, so we can see what's going on. But in the next canal, there are actually signs on each end saying what part of the hour we come through here. But on weekends, yeah, you'll probably see a boat in the next canal or two. I just want to tell you all that you picked the perfect day to come for a boat ride because they just reopened the next canal yesterday. They've been in construction for a month. Now, recapping, there was a section that was in really bad shape. But they do close for dredging occasionally. They do. The city is in charge of everything. And in some cases, we deliver. Here's another view of that beautiful oak tree. Not all of them, but that was the deepest point we have personally been able to find. I'll tell you what, there was an owl here one day that sent me a little good luck. That's what the lady next to me said. That was good luck. I said, you're right, it landed on the dash. So before 1875, this whole area was called Lakeview. There were these two guys, Chapman and Chase, that came down here from New England who wanted to change things. They bought over 1,000 acres, you know, and they split it up to sell to their people back up north. But they didn't think Lakeview would be a very good selling tool. So they're the ones who helped charter it and change the name to Park in the winter, you know, Winter Park, had a little ring to it. And that's when it all began, 1875. And that's when Mr. Morse's family built that boathouse over there. That's the oldest boathouse on the chain of lakes. Built around 1880. And Mr. Brewer, he used to come down here, starting at the beginning, he used to buy train loads of this wood to ship back to his carriage building factory up in Cortland, New York. But he had his work cut out.
Hey,
for him,
y'all.
There was not
Lewis
much
and
around
us
here to
is
impress
out
his
about
wife,
we.
except him. So what he told his wife, well, I'm going to tell you.
We did a
what he
boat
told his
tour.
wife.
We're trying to find everything that we don't have to do a lot of walking to.
So back in 1897, Mr. Brewer convinced his wife to move here by telling her that he was going to build her a copy of their house. How about that? And here it is, the Brewer Estate behind the twin boathouses. That Brewer Estate was built in 1897 for Mrs. Brewer. It includes a big ballroom in the center. It's got 7 bedrooms, 7 baths, and 2 kitchens as well. And it is one of only 3 houses in the city that's on the National Historic Register. And know that when it was originally built, it sat on 200 acres. So it was just a beautiful place all by itself over there. In 1935, James Gamble Rogers, who was like the architect who changed the face of this town in the early to mid 20th century, he remodeled that place. He did some of the early construction of Rollins. I'm going to show you a handful of the other places he did around here. Even the birds, as you can see, have nice accommodations in Winter Park. But let the truth be told, those are for the exclusive youth of the smallest of the swallows. They're called purple martins. They migrate through here. They start in Brazil every year, end up as far north as Canada. They've been gone for about a month, but they build these birdhouses in their backyards everywhere just to preserve those guys along their route. James Gamble Rogers built this house in the mid-1950s, and it's got a couple of unique points to it. First of all, it sits on an amazing point, so it faces west and north, where it has 2 living rooms. Originally had an adobe-style roof. It's called Bermudian in style / colonial. It originally had an adobe roof even. It was red and beautiful, and up until about 6 weeks ago, it had a beachfront entirely. If you've been here before, you would have seen that, but erosion kind of did that in, and you know what? Back originally in the 50s, they went to the beach, picked up a couple of truckloads of sand and dumped them in their backyard. Try getting away with that today. So back in the late 70s, the alligators from all 6 of the lakes, they got together and they decided that that little location over there was the perfect place for their spring break. It's called Alligator Cove. And the city, everybody complained, of course. The city ended up pulling 150 alligators out of this lake and sending them over to Lake Jessup, which is about 8 miles east of here. Population 10,000 alligators.
Wow.
Now, if there's an adventurist and you go to Lake Jessup, you'll see alligators. You can say an airboat ride, and then you can have dinner at the Black Hammock. You'll never guess what's on the menu.
Alligator.
You got to get the dipping sauce, though. Tastes like chicken. That's exactly right. You know about alligators? Yeah, they're up to 16 feet, but most of them only have 4. This house across from us is 42,000 square feet. And you see the full-sized elephant on it. And then if you look to the right of the stairwell, that's a Fernando Botero sculpture.
He said the house was
That Botero's the
42,000 feet.
caretaker there. And coming into view will be the water
42,000 feet?
feature, whether you see what that becomes. 2 swimming pools, a shooting range, an ice skating rink. I mean, what do you want it for? Whatever you can fit into 42,000 square feet, which is like, what, 2 hotels?
Oh my, that is huge.
Oh, man, when they even went as far with the landscaping a year ago, they brought in like all 40-year-old trees. So imagine one semi backing in with a huge oak tree on it. That's the front of it. It looks like it's been here for decades. But anyway, watch what happens with the water feature there.
It have its own swim park inside. Unbelievable. They don't have to come out for anything. 42,000 square feet. Gracious. Wow.
As we enter this canal, this is the Venetian that just reopened yesterday. On the left and right are James Gamble Rogers homes that he built simultaneously way back in 1954.
Wow.
These people to the right have a great sense of humor, by the way. The house is called Southern Exposure. More bananas.
Oh, that's banana tree. Oh, I saw it. I seen it. Ooh, that house was 42,000 square feet. That is crazy. Its own entertainment park, swim park, everything.
Okay, get the child ready. There's a little bear in a tree coming up. There you go, little bear, little bear.
You see it, baby? Yeah.
Alligator.
Yeah. Ooh.
I call this the backyard side of the tour.
This is the back of their houses. I guess the pool area. Hey, honey. How y'all doing? Hey, family. Hey. Papa, you know, the retired one. We're out and about. We try to figure out things we can do that we don't have to walk.
This is the new construction.
Did y'all see that house? 42,000 feet. They have their own water park in the house. That is crazy. Wow. We're in Winter Park. Wow.
Daddy, I want rocks on what? We need it. We need the ice
And here we are approaching Lake Maitland. This is the largest of the 6 lakes in the chain. approximately 850 acres. That's Maitland to the north and the west, and if you're familiar with the area, 1792 runs
Hey,
south to north
Henderson.
over that way.
I know. I don't want no alligator either. And he said that lake grew to like 10,000 alligators. Oh my goodness.
Over here to your right is what I call perfect snapshot.
Did you ever
of
see
what
that
would have
house,
looked
42,000
from the
square?
lake in 1937, courtesy of the Kraft family, who were kind enough to donate 15 acres to be used exclusively as a city park. But you know what? They couldn't hand it over without finishing it. They planted the gardens. They did it all. All the city had to do was hang a sign and call it Kraft Aelia Gardens. And then to capitalize on their parents' memory, the Kraft children donated this Excedra, this concrete structure. And in the mid-1950s, Excedra is what it's called, and that's actually a Greek word for outdoor room with seating. And just about every hour of the day on the weekend, you're going to see a different kind of photo shoot going on there. There's even a big banyan tree here. They usually don't grow well north of Miami, but that one's like 40 years old. It's as big as they get around here. Garden straight ahead of us, I thought, now that's a perfect spot for an Easter egg hunt. And that house has been through a lot of evolution since Mr. Meisner built it in the 30s. The last guy to buy it 10 years ago, he also bought the house next door and turned it into a bigger yard. Pretty amazing. They're just going to work on the boathouse. To the far right is what was once a very popular hotel resort. It was called the Hotel Alabama, built in the 1920s. And it was popular. As a matter of fact, a lot of notables stayed there, U.S. presidents and the like. Even Margaret Mitchell called that place home in the winter. So we figure she had to have written a few chapters of Gone with the Wind right here in Winter Park. Anyway, that 80-room resort is now a 19-unit condominium. About 4 months ago, I was fortunate enough to have James Gamble Rogers' youngest son on board for a tour. It was on a Saturday morning, just like this. Anyway, he told me the backstory of this house. The second part of my story is what I used to say. And the story, and he, by the way, he's about 85 years old now. So anyway, he told me the story, and that a friend of his dad's, the guy who built this house, was an architect. And he built it because he and his fiancée loved going to Venice. And on their wedding day, he actually surprised her with this house. And he even carried her across the threshold and said to her, "Honey, how do you like your new Venetian-style home?" And she said, "I don't." They were divorced 6 months later. And that made room for the brain surgeon who ended up buying it. He actually bought the house next door at the same time because he didn't have room to build a swimming pool here. Tom Hanks lived in that house for a year in 1997 when he was filming From the Earth to the Moon out at Disney Studios. That was a docudrama on HBO about the Apollo space program. Just beyond that, there's a bridge that leads to what we call the Isle of Sicily. James Gamble Rogers, again, in 1935, went to the city and convinced them to convert what was then swampland into real estate. They ended up cutting 11 after they paid 40,000. They cut in 11 lots. He traded his services for one of those lots, and today that's the most valuable real estate in all of Central Florida. This is my favorite Gamble Rogers home right here on the point. He built that in 1937. It's the only one that's fully intact from his day. And the Christmas tree, you can see some bulbs hanging there. That was started by one of our skippers about 30 years ago. We call that Charlie's Brown Christmas tree. Avenue. And this is what I mean when I say they knocked down $5 million homes to build $15 million homes. There is no fresh dirt in Winter Park, especially Lakeside. And if you talk to a realtor, you'll learn they only about 2, 3, or 4 houses go up for sale each year on the whole chain of lakes. These two houses are interesting. The one to the right behind the trees, the modern house was built for Horace Grant. You might remember he was an NBA star. He played with Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls for a while. Then he moved to Orlando, played with Shaquille O'Neal. Then he went away, came back to Orlando. But anyway, the biggest problems, they weren't even problems, adjustments were to make it comfortable for people who were under 7 feet tall. Right next door, that house was built by James Gamble Rogers in the the late 1930s. He built that for the Packard family. Remember, they used to build cars in the U.S., and they went out of business in the late 50s because they were deemed too luxurious for the times. But anyway, that was the Packard family's winter home for about 3 decades. So back into the Venetian Canal we go. Everybody's good back there. This boathouse to the left is part of Rollins College and the home of their crew team. Also, as we enter this canal, you're going to notice what are called cypress knees popping out. Those are part of the root system of the tree, but they're not sure their exact purpose. Some think that they actually provide oxygen to the trees because the trees are basically underwater. Others think, nah, that's just how they balance. How about a $300,000 boathouse? That's what one of these sold for just a few years ago. Just a boathouse. These are the only 4 independently owned boathouses on the chain of lakes. puppies are out today. How about that?
Oh, look at them. Oh,
I like dogs.
yes, 42,000. Wow. Oh, they're beautiful. Oh, they're gonna leave. Got me. Get ready to slap me in the face. Whew.
This roadway to your left is called Alabama Drive. That was the original service road to the hotel. Back when the hotel, the guy who bought the hotel, who built it, he actually bought like 200 acres of land here from the government for $1.50 an acre.
Wow.
That was back in like 1910, right?
Wow.
And then he split it up, and his idea was come and stay in Alabama and buy yourself a pretty little lot for your new home. This bridge was built in 1924. This
All
is
right,
the
we got a
oldest bridge
duck,
in the
y'all.
city. And this is Palmer Avenue. If
I
you
got a
wanted to
duck.
like take a drive and check out the lakefront hall, this would be a way to go. You know, a lot of celebrities went to Rollins College. One of those was Buddy Ebsen. Remember him? He was Jed Clampett in the Beverly Hillbillies. Then he was cast in The Wizard of Oz, you know, as the Scarecrow. Then they said, nah, he'll make a better Tin Man. And he got sick from the makeup. There was like aluminum powder in it or something that nearly killed him.
Oh,
Tony
wow.
Perkins, Anthony Perkins, remember, he was in the Hitchcock thriller Psycho. He went to Rollins. Ellen Bergman, remember, she was with Tiger Woods when he had that little incident right here in the record. Pete Dye, the famous golf course designer. There were many more. But one other that I'd like to point out was Mr. Rogers. Remember him? Mr. Fred Rogers. It was a beautiful day in the day. He was on PBS for 60 years. He was in the class of 1952 at Rollins College. And his parents bought him this house right here, this red brick home with the white A-frame. That was his college home for 5 years. And the joke is that he needed a place for his grand piano because he was a fine musician. But that was his home. Class of 52 at Rollins. He came back frequently. Loved Winter Park. There's even a statue of him over at the college on what they call their Walk of Fame. It's a statue of him surrounded by children. Very nice. There used to be two hotels, each called the Seminole Hotel. Seminole 1 sat on that opposite bank where all that green space is. It was built in 1896 and it burned down after only 12 years. And then its successor sat right here until the early 1970s. As a matter of fact, they just redid that little piece over there. And then that boathouse actually was the boathouse and the observation deck for the Seminole. Again, they tore that down in the mid-19th. And this is where I'd like to thank you for staying on board today. Now I can share this story about the Capon House. Remember that one? It's 135 years old, but it sat here for over 120 years where that gray house is. Those people are the ones who actually bought it, but you know what? They decided they weren't going to restore it. We're going to build a new home. Thaddeus Seymour, who was then the president over at Rollins, he got wind of that, and he was like a historical preservationist. He had a group of people, after getting their permission to have the house, raised $450,000, secured that little spot at the museum. Then their construction crew actually with chainsaws cut the Capon in half into two pieces, and one by one they rolled it down the lawn, placed it on a barge, and floated it to where it is today. Two easy pieces. Took about 2 weeks to move it and about 2 years to put it back together again.
Wow.
But the news stations, it was kind of a big deal around here, and you can see it on the news. You can see it on YouTube. Capon, C-A-P-E-N. Then there was a guy named Charles Hosmer Morris. I told you, he was part of the Genius family, or the Genius part of his family. Jeanette Genius McKean was his granddaughter. He gave more to this city than anybody. He gave us lots of land when he left. He gave us a foundation called the Morge Foundation that funds about every charity in Central Florida. This was his location, his estate. When it sat on over 1,000 acres at the top of the hill, you'll see his home. It'll come into view in just a second. It's on Interlochen Avenue. It's called the Osceola Lodge. But anyway, he also gave us our Central Park, gave us a beautiful Tiffany Museum. It just goes on, and we're very happy about that part of our heritage, that's for sure. Thank you for coming aboard today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, even if you were forced to. Did the kids have their life preservers on? Good. Thank you for doing that as well. We have 2 police officers on this lake that love to watch us as we squander about. But anyway, thanks again. Park Avenue is 3 streets up. You can't miss it if you're looking for some air conditioning.
Yes.
Lots of great shops and restaurants as well. Otherwise, if you would, please stay on board for safety's sake until I can assist you off. Thank you.
See you later. I'll be back on later. Thank you. Bye-bye. This is SheilagreenHall and Lucas Warrior out and about today. Thank you. I'll talk to y'all later.